Hey, so in this section, we're going to start making a couple of changes to our project. So I'm inside of my code editor and I'm going to open up my SRC directory. Remember, our goal right now is to get a better idea of how JSX works. So I want to delete all the code inside of this SRC directory. And we're going to create new files, which we're going to experiment with in just a little bit. And that way we will get a better idea of how JSX works. So I'm going to highlight everything inside of the SRC folder, and just for the SRC folder. And I'm going to delete all of it. Okay, so now the SRC directory is empty. And I'm going to create a new file inside of here called index.js. Now, the name of this file is indeed very special. So just make sure that you name your file index.js as well. I'll tell you a little bit later on why this file is so special, so dear to my heart. Now, when I create this new file, I can flip back over to my browser where I have my React application running at localhost 3000. So if I refresh the page, you'll notice it's now completely white. Nothing at all shows up. So right now, we want to figure out how to use React to get some content to appear on this screen. Once we figure out how to get some content to appear on the screen using React, we'll then be able to start to play around with JSX a little bit and get a better idea of all the rules around it. You need to know the rules to break them, or you need to break the rules to learn them. Well, let's move on. So it's a 3-step process, basically, and we're going to follow 1, 2, 3. So to get some content to show up on the screen, this is what you do. We'll begin right now with step number 1. I want to import the React and React DOM libraries. And in order to do so, I'm going to write out import React from React, and then import React DOM from React-DOM. Okay. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about exactly what import statements are and why we have to use them at all. But before I do, I want you to take special note and make sure that you put the capital DOM in your import statement, just like I have it here, okay? So, what's with the import statement, huh? Well, I'd like to take you back a little bit. We are reminded that back on over on the other project that we worked on in CodePen, we didn't have to write an import statement. We just added the React and React DOM to our project. And that was pretty much it. Well, now we are using it with the Create React app. And we're using a bundler system called Webpack. We're going to talk about what Webpack is and why we're using it. But for right now, all we need to understand is that every file that we create inside of our project is essentially its own tiny little universe. Any code that we write inside this file is not going to be automatically shared or made available to other files and vice versa. So in other words, if we want to gain access to any libraries or any other code that we write inside of our project, we have to write an import statement like the one that you see right here. All right. So now, a quick diagram. So first we will place the import keyword, and it tells JavaScript that we want to reach out to either a dependency or another file inside of our project. So the import statements like this can be used to import either dependencies or packages that we install to our project, such as React and React DOM. Now, the second word is going to the name of a variable that we want to take all the code from that dependency or file and assign to. Now, I know I kind of said that awkwardly, but essentially what's going on here is that we're going to reach out to the React dependency. Yeah? So we're going to take all the code inside that dependency and then assign it to this React variable. Now, one thing to be aware of is that the name of this variable right here does not have to be exactly React. We could very easily rename it to something like my React or anything else, really, if we wanted to. But in general, we will follow the naming convention where we name our variable along with the name of the library itself. That way, nobody gets confused. So the library name is React. We assign it to a variable called React. If the name of the variable of library is React DOM, we can assign it to a variable called React DOM, and so on. Naming convention, clarity, yeah. So the next up is the from keyword, and we want to pull code from a file or a dependency. And then finally, we will list either the dependency that we want to import from or a path to the file that we want to import in case we are importing a file that we've created ourselves. So now, if we list out a dependency right here, what's going to happen is JavaScript is going to say, oh, okay, I see that you want React. It's then going to look inside the node modules directory and is going to try to find a folder inside of here called React. So if you scroll down inside of that node modules folder, you're going to see that we have a folder called React right here. So when we say import React from React, that means go and find the React folder inside the node modules directory and get all the code from inside of there. And then the same thing with the React DOM as well. Now, you'll see that the React DOM folder is right there. So if we wanted to, we could technically import any of the different folders that you see inside of our node modules directory. We could also install more modules into the node modules directory and import those as well. But before you do that, obviously, we're only going to import the dependencies that we actually want to use and really care about for this particular project. Okay? Okay. So next step is we're going to focus on creating a React component. But before we do that, I do want to very quickly let you know about what exactly a React component is. All right, to the diagram. React component. So it's a function or a class component. Back on CodePen with that quick example we did a while ago, you saw an example of a class-based component, and we can also create them as a function. The purpose of a component is that either a function or a class is to produce HTML that we're going to show to the user. Now, its secondary purpose is to handle feedback from the user. For example, anytime that the user clicks or types or drags or any type of event like that. So in order to produce content or HTML to show the user, we're going to write out some amount of JSX. So remember, JSX, that stuff's going to look like HTML. Now, in order to handle feedback from the user, you remember back when we used CodePen, we used those things called event handlers in order to handle feedback from the user? Of course you do. We're going to talk about this step a little bit later on, but right now our focus is just on showing content to the user and using a small amount of JSX. So let's now flip back over to our index.js file, and we're going to create a new functional component. So I'm going to say const app is equal to a function, And inside of here, I'm going to return a div that has the text hi there, like so. Yeah, and that's it. That's a function-based component right there. So now this is a component that is using a function with the function keyword. So very frequently you will see this rewritten using an ES2015 arrow function. It would look like that rather than putting the function keyword that we put in the arrow, which is the equals and then the greater sign on the other side of the parenthesis. Then inside of the functional component, we return a little bit of JSX right here. Cool. So now that we've got a function-based component put together, we're going to take that component and we're going to show it on the screen in our browser. Now to do that, I'm going to add a little bit more code down here at the bottom. So I'm going to say React DOM. Now, let me remind you that DOM is capital D-O-M .render. And then I'm going to open up a function call and I'm going to expand it just like this. So just give myself a little bit more space to type. Now for the first argument, I'm going to take that app component that we just created and I'm going to put it into JSX tags. So essentially it looks like HTML tags. And I'll put an app like so, and then put a comma. And the second argument is going to be a reference to a DOM element that already exists inside of our HTML file. Now, we might just pause right there and say, what HTML file? Well, we haven't really spoken about it just yet, but you will notice that inside that public directory, we have an index.html file. Anytime that someone goes to localhost 3000, they get sent this HTML file right here. So inside this HTML file, you can scroll down to the body, and inside the body, you'll see that there is a div with an ID of root. So by convention, in a create React generated application, we're going to take our component and render it or display it inside of this div with the ID of root right here. So we need to essentially get a reference to this div with the ID root, and then we're going to pass it as the second argument to the React DOM.render. Call back over here inside of our index.js file. Follow? So to do that, I'm going to write out document.querySelector, and I'll pass a string with #root, like so. Ha! So that call right there is going to get a reference to that div with an ID of root, right? So this is a built-in native function that is available in all browsers. So we don't have to import anything or do anything like that in order to use it. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's the 3 steps that we have to go through to get some content to appear in our browser. So let's go ahead and save this file. All right, so now that I've saved this file, I should be able to flip back over to my browser at localhost 3000. And I'll see the content being produced from our function-based component appear on the screen. I'm not nervous. I'm just short of breath. Okay, it simply says, hi there. Ah, bliss. Am I right? Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's how we get some content to appear on the screen. We import React and React DOM. We create a React component, and then we take that component and show it on the screen using the React DOM library. Boom. Okay. So So why don't we take a break right now, and in the next section, we're going to learn a lot more about JSX and how we interact with it.